episode 15 of the podcast series. Today I am here with Will Conboy.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Will Conboy he's part of the Delphi Bible Study, and Will's got a lot of wisdom and just super knowledgeable when it comes to the faith. You know, when it comes to theology, the history, Will is the man. So, Will, thank you for being on the podcast. As you can see, I have my handy-dandy flashcard to help me navigate some questions that I've come up with. So, I guess the first thing I want to start with, I mean, obviously, you went on the Eucharistic Pilgrimage, which we will get to, but I think the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit of your background, right? So, when, throughout your childhood, like, what were you like as a kid?
I'm not a good kid. It didn't
Get out of here.
No, it was a rocky start.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
When I saw that picture of you and you kind of had your hands on your hips, you looked like you were a little sassy.
Yeah, probably. I mean, when I was younger, I would say probably the two things that I would do the most that would not be considered good within our religion would be the level of anger that I had and the lying. I loved to lie. I was a pathological liar.
Get out of here.
I would lie a lot, especially with my parents. And it was kind of, St. Augustine talked about how in the Confessions, sometimes he would steal fruit from this like farmer's fruit trees, and he would do it just because he enjoyed stealing. He enjoyed the act of it.
Yeah.
And so in the same sense, I kind of like would lie a lot as a kid, just because I kind of like, I don't know if I enjoyed it or it was just because. It wasn't, it wasn't like I had big secrets as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But, well, maybe I had some. But, yeah, no, as a kid, it started off kind of tough. I had a great family. My parents are amazing. They love it.
Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Conboy.
Yes. But I didn't really start living the faith that much until probably high school.
Gotcha.
And that was when things
So you're talking about really elementary school, middle school, where you were a little mischievous.
That was when I was living a life that if I were my dad, I would have been like, bro, you need to cut that out. I would have disciplined myself.
Interesting. And this kind of, what we're talking about kind of ties into my second question where, like, what was your relationship with God like when you were a kid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was little, I feel like my religious formation there wasn't much to it when I was really young. I went to Catholic school my entire life since like first grade.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Where did you go for elementary, middle school?
I went to public kindergarten, and then for elementary, middle school, I went to St. Aidan's in Williston Park. It's not that big of a school, but it was all right. But I would say while I was there, I didn't learn what was needed at the stage I was at in my life. And I kind of grew up not knowing most of the faith, not knowing what I should know. And that persisted again until around high school when I started to learn more things and I started to dive into it. As a child, I had a deep love of history, and so that...
Which you still do.
Which I still do.
Yeah.
And that kind of got me to learn more about the church, and sort of, that reeled me in to where I started to learn more. But as a child, I didn't have, I would say, much of a relationship with Christ at all.
And I do find that interesting with a lot of people where, they do go to Catholic school and, for whatever reason, it just doesn't, click with them. It doesn't resonate. It's one of those things where, they go there from whatever, 8 to 3 and, people, I feel like a lot of people, kids and adults, they go through the motions, but they don't really, truly feel something.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I'll say so you said high school, right, is when you started to take the faith more seriously.
Yeah.
Was there an epiphanal moment, or was there somebody or something that happened that you felt really changed you in your thought process?
There were a lot of moments of like conversion and grace. It began with an addiction that I was struggling to get rid of that was sexual in nature. And I tried, because I realized this was like damaging my life. I realized that this was causing me a lot of grief. And So I wanted to get rid of it, not because it was considered morally wrong, but because I just wanted to remove this thing from my life. And so I tried to go about like secular routes to doing that, and nothing would work for breaking habits. I would do the like typical like take cold showers, like work out often, read books, like whatever, that kind of thing. And it doesn't, it can help.
Stay hard mindset.
Yeah, like stuff like that. And it can help. It can help you live a more like disciplined lifestyle, but it's not going to break deep, habitual, rooted sin. It can't do that. Only grace can do that. And so eventually, I came to a point where I was willing to give religion a shot, so to speak. And this was because I had had good religion teachers my freshman, my sophomore year of high school, who started to really form me. We were taught salvation history. We came to understand that. We were taught church history. And in church history, it was like, okay, like, guess what? Mortal sin is a thing. Like, it is possible for you, by your actions, to separate yourself from a relationship with God. And, like, coming to accept that, and then realizing that there were actions that I did that caused that separation. I was willing to then try out, like, okay, fine, I'll go to confession. And I go, and it helps. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to confession more. And it got to a point where I was going on a pretty frequent basis for the purpose of like, okay, I need to remove this sin from my life. And that was the only thing that actually helped. That was the only thing that actually did anything. Consistent going to the sacrament. So at my high school, I went to Shamna. They had confessions, I think every like Tuesday or something. Every Tuesday morning, the chaplain would sit in the confessional and he'd be there just for any students who would come in. And there's a decent amount of guys who would go. It was actually really nice to see that. And that was extremely helpful. What also helped was then I had a really good Latin teacher named Mr. Maddock. And he is a lay brother of a religious order. And he would teach. And he would, before every class, do the lives of the saints. He would read through a saint of the day. And he would be very strong about the Catholic faith. And he would tell me, he recommended I joined the Benedictine order at one point.
Really?
He sent me a group. He was like, check these guys out. That obviously did not pan out. But that was, he was an extremely good influence. He, not just me, but he showed like his students as much as he could the traditions of the Catholic faith, just like the good parts of it. There were a lot of teachers who helped me in that way. In my junior year religion class, we studied the theology and philosophy of Thomas Aquinas, and that completely changed my life because I had accepted that things like confession, the sacraments, the Eucharist were helping me, but I didn't really understand the faith, and learning the philosophy and theology of Thomas Aquinas is what really like changed the game completely to where I could understand things and where it really clicked with my mind. And my mind opened up, I feel like, after learning that. And from there, it was just about growing and practicing virtue and like disciplining myself more within the faith, because now I had access to this like grace that we do have access to. And that helped me out. And I could say like in the middle of high school was when I really started to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, like through the church.
So I think it was a combination of things, right? Taking, learning the theology, right? Practicing the sacraments and seeing your life change, right? And seeing, yourself being able to overcome certain, sinful habits was something that hugely impacted you and made you want to grow even more into the faith. And then now I want to get more into, this Eucharistic pilgrimage, right? So you did it, a couple weeks ago?
Yes, I think it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Would you like to explain, what a Eucharistic pilgrimage is?
Yes. So basically, we have in the Catholic Church the great gift of Jesus Christ, the Eucharist, his presence in his body and blood for us under the appearances of bread and wine. And so we as Catholics, we love this gift that the Church is able to give us, and we want to bring that gift to the world. So for hundreds of years, going back to around maybe the 1300s-ish, Catholics have been doing Eucharistic processions where we take the Eucharist out into the streets, out into the town, walk around with Christ in the Eucharist, go back to the church, sing psalms, sing hymns, do incense, do the whole thing, do the whole shebang. And it's a way to have people outside the church who may not go have an encounter with Jesus Christ, have a moment where they can see like, okay, this is what these people believe, this is what they're doing. Why are they doing that? It's a moment for people. And the pilgrimage was basically 9 days of that. It was 9 days of processions to all different churches, ending with what was called the Eucharistic Congress, right? We have the National Eucharistic Congress in the United States, but they also will do them at the diocesan level every so often. And so this was the first one we've had in our diocese for I think 30 years.
Wow.
So they did a 9-day pilgrimage before it to imitate the national pilgrimage with perpetual pilgrims. So it wasn't just me, it was like 10 lay people and a bunch of Dominican sisters. They were amazing. That we walked, processed, and helped run these Eucharistic adorations for those 9 days.
Gotcha. And then what made you want to become one?
I guess I saw it in my church bulletin like one Sunday a while before it started, and I was like, oh, this sounds pretty cool, I guess. Yeah. I don't know if I want to commit to 9 days. Seems fun. Maybe if one of my friends would do it. And my mom saw it too because she reads through the thing.
Okay.
And she's like, you have to do this. You have to do. I told her I was thinking about it. She's like, you have to do this. Go do this. Like, you must. And so she convinced me to sign up. I was kind of on the fence, but
really?
She got me to do it. Probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. So shout out, Mom, for getting me to do that. But yeah.
Any what were your biggest takeaways? Or any realizations after doing it?
I mean, as far as takeaways, like, on a basic human level, I've made some really amazing friendships with people. I met people that I never would have met any other way. And it really did felt like we were guided there, in a certain sense, by God. Because, like, I don't know, we all just clicked so well. Yeah. And the priests who were running the pilgrimage, spent a lot of time praying to decide who would go on what route and whatever. It was very interesting. The sisters that were with us were so massively inspirational to me and every one of us.
In what sense?
Just they were so joyful the way they live their faith. Like, it was that they're some of the happiest people I think I've ever met.
Yeah.
And also just, I don't know, like they know their stuff. They're happy. They wear they're wearing the full habit. They're going out in like the hot sun playing ultimate frisbee in their full Dominican kit. Like, they don't care. One of the sisters, Sister Maria Francisco, she was a stamina beast. Like, all of us, including one of the guys on my route was a marathon runner. We were all like huffing and puffing gas, and she could still run around on the hottest day of the pilgrimage playing ultimate frisbee. It was crazy. It was so fun. Yeah. But yeah, that was one big takeaway, was just the friendships and just seeing how God can work through people to bring us all closer together, and how if you really are seeking God, it's very easy to become friends with people, almost feel like you've like met them long ago and you're like meeting them again in a way. So that was something really cool, just seeing how Christian friendship can work.
Connections can develop a lot quicker.
They can. Like, it's almost immediate in a way. Like, I didn't know these people. And normally I'm a very introverted person. Normally I'm very like to myself, but I was able to open up with these people day one, which was interesting.
Did you feel like, you kind of saw another side to yourself, where it was like you saw this more extroverted?
I think I saw a side of myself that was more willing to like commit to doing a job in the church. Like, a lot of the time I have kept myself back and been like, I don't need to be an altar server. I don't need to like be involved in this ministry activity. I can just sit in the pew and experience it. And like, now it's more so like I want to go out and help. I want to like help the priest do some activity. I want to do that. And like, that was what I found, is I was more willing to volunteer for things on the pilgrimage. I was like, no, I want to like carry the cross. I want to like help with incense. Yeah. Whereas before, I would kind of keep myself back, maybe let someone else do it. So there was more like that willingness to take action developed a bit on the pilgrimage. We called it holy boldness. We said we were just practicing holy boldness. Yeah. But that was definitely something I took away as well, and that I hope to keep developing.
Gotcha. All said and done, I know you wanted to go to Nassau, right? You wanted the Nassau route, and you ended up getting Suffolk, right? All said and done, are you happy you got Suffolk?
Yeah, definitely. I if I wasn't on the Suffolk route, I wouldn't have met the people I met on the Suffolk route.
Yeah.
I realized, like, on the Nassau route, the vibe was completely different. And this isn't to say it was bad, but their way of doing the pilgrimage was very different from ours. My group had more people who were extroverted, willing to I don't know, talkative, kind of funny. Like, the other route was more reserved.
A little more serious.
Yeah, and, like, there's room for that. But I think I would have kept myself if I was on the Nassau route much more than I did on the Suffolk route, just because of the people there who did really help to open me up. And, you know, like, there was also some, like, conflict of personalities on the Nassau route, too. There were two very strong personalities who kind of would butt heads a lot. And, again, I don't know if I would do well in that environment because I tend to, like, stand off. Not that there was anything bad, but just that, like, you know, there were two very strong personalities. And, you know, like, when two people want to be the leader, it can be hard to, like, make that work.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, it was still, and also the sisters that they had on the route were different personalities. They were more quiet. And so then I would have been quiet like them. The sisters we had on our route were jumping around loud, playing music, throwing frisbees. Like, it was different. The other sisters were still very joyful and good. But it was a different connection that we had, I think.
You felt that, you know, because of the other personalities in the Suffolk route, like, because they were so extroverted, it kind of helped you to break out of your shell.
And also, on the Suffolk route, it was really like being sent to a foreign land in a certain sense. Because I've never seen, I saw one of the churches that I saw on the route before. I've only been to one of them. Almost all of them were completely new to me.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see the different communities. I went to Mass in Polish.
Huge.
I went to Mass in Spanish. I'd never been to Mass in Polish. I'm pretty sure I'd never been to Mass in Spanish. But it was interesting to see the different cultures because I'm so used to just the, like, English-speaking, maybe Irish, Italian, Catholic side of things.
That's fair, yeah.
And not the different ways of being Catholic culturally as well.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see.
I think community is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I wasn't, you know, I didn't go for all 9 days, but I went to, I think, you know, one,
you were there
in
for
Suffolk,
a couple,
and I was there for a couple, right? So to see all the different communities, I mean, even in Montauk, right? You know, seeing all, you know, the big Hispanic culture there, you know, like, and a lot of them speak, you know, they speak Spanish. Some of them don't even speak any English. So to see that, you know what, there might be a language barrier, but we can still, you know, worship the, you know, Jesus in the same way is, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to, any other comments?
I think with the pilgrimage, I would love to see some more young adult things that are like that in the diocese. I think it's a great, like, kickoff, and they are trying to do that here.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be involved with it. I've seen there are some priests here that are working towards that, and there are great events coming up. There are great things going on. So I just want to see it has built up some momentum for the diocese. So I want to see that continue. I think that's the main.
Definitely, I agree. I think having more young adult events is huge.
Yeah.
Just in general, you know, even, I mean, you know, obviously, you know, the Adelphi LIU Bible study, that's great, but you know, how about for people who don't go to college? You know, how do they get involved in their faith?
Most of the people, so on my route, I was the youngest person. Most of them a couple of them were already working, like, full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Some of them were, like, fresh out of college. So that was an interesting perspective as well, as seeing, like, okay, like, we need to have events for these people as well. We need to have a place for them. Because sometimes, if you're in, let's say, your 30s, it can feel like you're in a weird, like, middle state between being one of the older Catholics and one of the young ones. And so it's been nice to do stuff with them, and I hope that there's more ways for them to do more, because they want to be involved. Like, the guys I met want to be involved doing things. So, yeah, I don't know.
Gotcha. And then now I feel like this segment is a little bit more, I guess, abstract kind of questions. So I feel like these questions don't necessarily correlate to each other.
Okay.
So the first one I have for you is, if you were Pope, what would you change?
Wow. Oh.
Yeah, and like I said, take it, you know, if you want to take some time to think about this, don't be shy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll put like the background music, like.
Yeah.
But
Hope. Wow. Okay. It's a dangerous question.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a few things. Most of the things that I would change would be things that are recent in church history, I'd
Okay.
say. So,
Okay.
for example, to be a permanent deacon, you have to be 35 years old, I believe, in order to become a permanent deacon. And in our diocese, at least, most of the permanent deacons are much older than 35. I feel like we should lower the age requirement a little bit, maybe 30, maybe your late 20s, just to make it more available. Because like there are younger men who want to like do something more than altar serve, because there are some communities where older men will assist in altar serving and like assist at the altar. And there's room for, I think the permanent diaconate is good, and I think that if we had more permanent deacons, there would be less need for some of the other things we have. Like, for example, at a lot of masses, they have lay people helping to distribute the Eucharist. I feel like making the permanent diaconate more available would have more, you'd have more ordained men helping in that role, being able to bring the Eucharist to the sick and to the homebound, things like that. Because for example, a lay person can't give a blessing, a deacon can. So there's a need there that deacons can fulfill if we don't have the level of priest that we need.
So do you feel that there's a need for more deacons?
I think we need more deacons than we need lay people helping at the altar. I think we do need and again, lay people are permitted to assist in that role, which if I were Pope, maybe things would change. But deacons can do more. Deacons can perform baptisms. Deacons can, what else can they do? They might be able to do a marriage ceremony. I don't remember on that. But they can perform baptisms, they can perform blessings, and they can give out the Eucharist as like an ordinary minister, not as an extraordinary minister. And so they have this role. And that was historically their role in the early church, was they would help with distributing the Eucharist to the homebound. If they couldn't do it, some lay people could, like that was permitted. But it was supposed to be their job. It was mainly their job. There were other things too. But also, Pope Francis during his papacy, Pope Francis, happy memory, Lord rest his soul, but there were some things he did that I would probably have, like, if I were Pope, maybe, I don't want to say correct, but maybe change the language. So there was one document, what was it called? It was called Fiducia Supplicans, and it was about blessings of people who have same-sex attraction. And the document was very, poorly received because of the language. So some people took it as being very theologically, I don't want to say liberal because that's a loaded word, but theologically kind of malleable. You could do whatever you want with it. And some people said, no, it's just holding to the teaching of the church, whatever. I would just put out a clarification document, like, okay, here's what we mean, here's the church teaching, there can be no question about this. There we go. There was another document, which was a disciplinary document that he put out called Traditiones Custodes. That restricted the celebration of the older form of Mass a lot. I would probably just get rid of that document because I find the older Mass to be inspiring, and I think it can help us when we're examining how to best celebrate the new Mass. So I'd probably do that. And then, I don't know, I would just celebrate maybe some Eucharistic adorations as Pope, do things like that. Pope Leo actually did for the Feast of the Body of Christ. He did a really cool, I saw some video from Rome, a really nice adoration outside, it looked like. It was beautiful, it was great, love that stuff. I think we should see a little bit more of that. Adoration is something that was kind of brought back during the 60s and 70s. It was hardly practiced anywhere, it kind of fell off, and then John Paul II, Benedict, and under Francis, it came back a lot. So I'd like to see that emphasized along with really well done masses. I don't know. There's not too much right now that I think the Pope needs to top down change, but I think there's a lot of stuff that can be done at the level of the bishop.
Gotcha. And then this question's very different, but where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10. I thought about it a lot after the pilgrimage because it was an inspiring time, and there was talk of like what to do afterward. And originally, and I'm still going to do this for a little bit, but originally I was planning on going into Catholic media, either the local station we have or EWTN, and I am going to do that internship and see how that goes. But after the pilgrimage and hearing things from the chaplains, there are a lot of openings for theology teachers in our diocese at the high school and like middle school level. And so I'm considering right now getting a master's in theology post-grad, and then I would go and teach in ideally the high school level. Within that time also, I would probably try and, like within the 5 to 10 year time span, I would try and get married.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Yeah, so it'd be marriage and then ideally theology teaching. And then eventually, further down the line, who knows how long this would take, I would try and get a doctorate and teach at the college level.
Yeah. Okay.
If that's
very
what
cool.
I stick with.
Very cool. Deacon Will.
Yes, that would be.
Is that a possibility?
I would do it, given the right circumstances. Again, like I said, I think the church needs it. I think the church needs more ordained men, like doing the things that they're supposed to do. While I might not be called to the priesthood, I think I could definitely help the priests. They're going to need help, especially in the next decade. They are going to need more people assisting with things that they might just not have the time to do. Like a house blessing, a deacon can go do that. If a priest simply has, because with all the priests I've met, the one consistent thing is their schedules are packed. They have so much stuff, which is almost counterintuitive because you think like, oh, the faith is dying, there's not that many people. No, like they have constant schedules of confessions, house blessings, masses, just everything. It's so filled. So it's not, if anything, it appears, and this is what one of the Dominicans I was speaking to said, it appears that our diocese is healthy and we just lack some of the priests. So we need, and within the next, let's say 2 decades, we might actually get a decent amount of priests because at the laity level, the diocese is healthy. There are people who want confessions, blessings, Eucharist, and the sacraments. People want the sacraments. And if they want the sacraments, if they're seeking the sacraments, the young men growing up will see that, and they will, if they have a call, hopefully they will go and do it. So I think, yes, it's a possibility, especially if I see a need in the local church, like, okay, they need help, I will do it.
Gotcha. And then I want to talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, Vox Clementis, right?
Yes, yeah, it's a Latin phrase from the Gospels, yeah.
Yeah. What made you want to start it?
I guess, I mean, especially, I was taking a media class at school called Basic Media Production, and I found that I enjoyed video editing, I enjoyed making videos for the classes, writing scripts and all that. And so I thought, like, why not make some in my spare time and just create a media portfolio. So if I do want to get a job in media, I can say, yo, here's a link, look at what I've made. And also just because of the Dominican orders, like kind of charism, I'm very into the Dominican order, and their way of doing things is preaching. Like that's their main thing, is to preach the word of God in one way or another. And so in a way I can participate in that by trying to spread the gospel through like a funny YouTube video or one where I like am talking about an experience I've had. So I'll probably make one about the pilgrimage eventually. I made one about a conference I went to, things like that, just to spread the faith and show that there are like really cool things that you can do as a Catholic. There are ways to have fun in your faith, and maybe also explaining some theology while I do that.
Gotcha. And then I will put that link in the description, so subscribe to Will's channel. It's good stuff. And then if you could talk with Jesus face to face for 5 minutes, what would you say to him? Now, yeah, there we go.
Probably which church is the correct one, just to, you know,
just
shove that in everyone's face.
Yeah.
Just to say, like, okay, like I got confirmation from the big guy himself. I know which one is right.
Okay.
I'm confident, but for the sake of other people in my life, I would get that. And let's see. I'd probably ask him to like what his favorite food was, maybe back in like ancient Judea.
So you keep it pretty casual.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, as far as faith questions go, we have the answers. We have the answers of like, okay, like who is he? Like he's the Son of God. Like I have the who is he? I have the like what did he do?
Yeah.
Like I know like he died on the cross for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not asking him like why did you die on the cross? Because we have those answers. He's given those answers through his church. But I'm interested in how he lived.
Yeah.
What, like, I guess, why then? Which, like, again, we can answer, like, why did he come into the world at that time? But it'd be interesting to see what he would say to that.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you appear to everybody? Again, like, we can come up with an answer about that from reason. But it's interesting, again, it would be interesting to hear God's answer. Mm-hmm. So I guess something like, favorite food, why don't you just walk the earth every day? Why did you come in that time in history?
Yeah.
Those kinds of questions would be interesting to me.
Are there any principles or teachings in Catholicism that you find to be, I guess, hard to wrap your head around, or?
Yeah, I mean the Trinity is tough. Not because it's like unbelievable, but just it's like something that you literally can't. This would be the church teaching. You can't understand it until you've died and you've gone to heaven and you can see God as He is. Like there's no way that your reason can fully comprehend it. It's a hard thing. Also, I guess the teaching authority of the Pope, it's something that I very gladly accept, and I would debate any non-Catholic Christians on. But it would be interesting to, I guess, it's something I need to continue to study further, because I fully believe in, say, the infallibility of the Pope when he fulfills the requirements for that, when he's teaching a doctrine. But it's interesting, like it's something where it's like, okay, like this is purely a faith thing. Like you have to trust that this is what God established. And there's a basis for the papacy's role in Scripture. But it's something you have to take a leap of faith on, I think, with the Pope, with the Trinity, even with sometimes like the divinity of Christ is very well established. Like we know in church tradition and church teaching that Christ is divine. He is the Son of God. Mm-hmm. And this kind of calls back to the Trinity. How does that work? Because the church teaches that He is the first begotten of the Father, and that He's of the same substance of the Father. And these things, again, can be hard philosophically to wrap your head around. Most people, and I think this is right, have a simple faith. They see the miracles, they see the history of the church, and they say, I trust in you.
Yeah.
As is right. But some of the things we won't be able to understand until we're on the other side of the veil.
Is that frustrating for you?
I guess because I am an intellectual-minded person.
Exactly.
So, like, I will never stop trying to understand the Trinity. Like, there will never be a time in my life where I'm like, all right, whatever, I give up. Like, I will keep trying to read about it. The same thing with the papacy. Like, I'll never stop trying to prove the papacy. I will always probably continue to read the documents and say, okay, well, here's a proof for that. In the Church Fathers, it says this. I don't think I'll stop trying to study it and trying to wrap my head around it, the different mysteries of the faith. But yes, it can be like frustrating. And the thing is, it's almost never up to me.
Yeah. In
the sense that like when I understand something, it's not because I've read something, but because it just kind of comes to me. Mm-hmm. Or, well, comes to me. It's because God will just impart a little bit of wisdom into your mind, and then you understand, and you're like, whoa. And that leaves, and then you feel like, why am I so stupid now? I understood it yesterday. It's interesting. But yes, it can be frustrating at times.
Yeah. Because knowing how you are, like, I feel like just for the viewers, Will is like the theologian of the group, I feel like. Where when it comes to the theology and all that, like I would say you're the most, the most knowledgeable when it comes to that.
Maybe. Oh, I don't know.
You definitely
be
up
nice.
there. Yeah, right? I know one thing you mentioned was you talked about how you would want to know if, I guess, the Roman Catholic faith is the true one. Do you think that one of the reasons being that you'd want to know that is because of Gia, right? Gia being Greek Orthodox.
Mhm.
Do you think that plays a huge role?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The only reason that, for example, I would have any questions about the papacy or about the Trinity is because of some of the debates I would have with her, right?
Yeah.
If I had never met her, I probably would just accept the papacy at face value and wouldn't try and dig deep to find a basis for it. And in studying writings of the Church Fathers and learning about the history of the papacy, I trust in it and I accept it as a real divine institution. But we will have real debates about it, and that can lead to having questions. And not necessarily doubting the thing, but having real questions. The same thing with the Trinity. Because there are some minor differences, but real differences between how the Orthodox and we Catholics see the Trinity. So definitely in being with Gia, there are things that come
and
up.
Also, just for the viewers, just for record, Gia is Will's
Gia's my
girlfriend.
girlfriend.
Hey, Will, what happened? I'm sorry, guys, but unfortunately, the camera, my phone was out of storage, so I had to revert to something else, but we are back.
Yes.
So we were talking about the differences between Catholicism and Orthodoxy, specifically Greek Orthodoxy, since Gia, shout out to Gia, aka Will's girlfriend, is Greek Orthodox. So I guess how has that brought you closer to Christ in the sense of looking at the small differences between the two faiths?
Yeah, it's definitely, as the perspective of a theologian, it's made me learn a lot more. It's brought me closer to Christ in that I think I've come to know him better because of the disagreements that exist. Also, Gia has been a great conversation partner in that, she will ask actual good questions that I would never think of. I say that I'm very unoriginal in my theology. Everything I say is basically a quote of someone else that already said it, whether it be some saint or whoever. But yeah, it's good to receive real original questions that I would not think of. But yeah, as far as the differences, Orthodoxy, Catholicism, there are several, as far as having a universal earthly authority, right? Having someone on earth who can be the last stop if you have a faith question, right? There is no, if there's a disagreement in Orthodoxy, let's say on contraception, which there is no one person who can decide what the Orthodox opinion is on that. There is no court, there is no Supreme Court in Orthodoxy that can say, no, this is the law of the whole Orthodox Church. Where in Catholicism, we can have a pope who says, this is the law of the church. This is what we believe as Catholics. That's it. The case is closed. Thank you for asking the question. That's a big deal. There's also disagreements over whether the Holy Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son, or whether the Holy Spirit only proceeds from the Father. That's a silly disagreement, in my opinion. I think they're wrong. I was talking about it with Gia literally 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. That's one where it's I'm thinking about the Trinity and I'm like, wow, the Trinity is crazy, but it's cool. It's fun to study, but there's little nitpicky things like that where it's why do you disagree? Why do you disagree?
It's nitpicky. It's small,
but it's important.
This is why there's all these different denominations.
It's important, and that's why you need someone who is the last authority. You need someone who's okay, after you've gone through all the normal means, let's say a priest has a problem. Let's say a priest has some doctrinal problem, right? And he's arguing with another priest. They can go to the bishop. If the bishop doesn't understand it, he could go to, let's say, the archbishop or the regional, cardinal. They can have their little thing. And if none of them can figure it out, they can go to the pope, and that's the last court of appeals. That's where you go, and that's where it gets sorted out and finished. Augustine had a famous phrase, Roma locuta est causa finita, which means Rome has spoken, the cause is finished, or the case is closed, basically.
I like that.
That's to say that, Rome has spoken, it's done. We're good. That's the last place you go for the answer. You get the answer, you're good. And that's how the church is operated. And that makes things easier because you don't have 50 different bishops all having their own opinion on divorce or contraception or some other thing. you have the church teaching, and that's what you have, and Rome has stamped the approval on that, and you're good. That's a big issue, and there are some others, but those things are large, and the doctrinal problems go back to authority, because in Greek Orthodoxy, for example, you are allowed to divorce up to 3 times, and you can be remarried up to each time, obviously, by the church, which is a large issue for me, because if you look to the scriptures, there's no basis for that at all. It's completely contrived. Contraception is an issue for me as well. That's condemned by the church in 1968, I want to say, in the document Humanae Vitae. Very important document, highly recommend. But the Orthodox Church doesn't have a unified opinion on contraceptives at all. You can read church fathers that the Orthodox revere, like St. Basil the Great, St. John Chrysostom. They very clearly condemn contraception. It's unclear why the Orthodox don't. But it just goes to show they don't have necessarily doctrinal unity, which we have in the Catholic faith. There are still lots of Catholics who don't believe what the church teaches, but it is at least clear what the church teaches. In Orthodoxy, it's not as clear on a lot of issues. So yeah, I guess that would be the point there.
Yeah. Any advice for the viewers on how to live an exceptional spiritual life?
Yeah, so there's 3 main points, I would say, for someone trying to grow in the spiritual life. I would say, first, make sure that you have your own life of prayer at home. Make sure you're praying every day, and find a devotion that works for you. So for some people, for a lot of people today, the favorite prayer is the Rosary. I love the Rosary. It's very in line with my kind of love of the Dominican order. But some people, the Rosary might not work for. So you could find some other devotion. The Jesus Prayer devotion of the Eastern Church is very good. There are others as well. So I would say find one that works for you, find a devotion that works for you, and stick to that every day. If you already have something like that, maybe try and go the extra mile. If you pray 1 Rosary a day, try and pray another one. Or if you want something different, this is something I started doing after the pilgrimage, try doing Liturgy of the Hours. There are apps for it, but it's the prayer of the church that priests pray. There's a good app called iBreviary for it on the App Store.
Is that like morning prayer, night prayer?
Morning prayer, evening prayer, night prayer. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I recommend it. It's very good. I've actually received some benefit from it. So that's to say, just find some prayer devotion that works for you, and then make sure that you're attending the sacraments. I mean, that's basic, but I would recommend, the bishops recommend, and I agree, go to confession around once a month. Make sure you're going to Mass every Sunday, and when you can, if there's like a really important feast day to you or something, try and go that day too. But make sure you're going on all the days you're required at least, and go to confession consistently.
How about daily Mass?
Daily Mass, yeah. So I've tried it. I've tried to start the habit of doing it, and it's very hard. But I would like to do it. I would like to do it. It's a very difficult thing, and I have friends who've tried it too, and it's just hard. It's hard. I think it's a good idea, but that's not for someone who's new. That's not for someone who's starting to start out. For someone who's started out, make sure that you're fulfilling the requirement, the basic requirement, and then you can try and add in, say, like, if you go every Sunday, maybe try and add in a Wednesday, if that works for your schedule. Like, try and add in another day there. That could be good. And then also just read the lives of the saints. I found that the lives of the saints are extremely inspiring, can be really helpful in the spiritual life, in finding maybe a way to solve a problem that you have, or you just find a friend in heaven that you like, someone who's like, wow, I really relate to their personality, I relate to the story of their life, I'm going to ask for this person's intercession to help me along my path in life. I found that with different saints. Not so much that I relate directly to them, but that, like, okay, I really like this aspect of St. Dominic, his life. I like St. Thomas Aquinas. As far as relatability, like, oh, there's St. Peter. But yeah, I think read the lives of the saints so you can find your friends in heaven, so to speak, and also get some inspiration.
That's a big one. That's a big one, because you look at Jesus' life, and, Jesus lives a perfect life. Mary lives a perfect life, but as, fallen creatures, it's hard to relate to that.
And I think the saints show us the way to imitate Christ as fallen men. Right? Because we are all called to imitate Christ. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. But it's like, okay, how do I do that? The saints show us a great way, many different ways to do that, to imitate Christ.
Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about, the Eucharist. Right? How can one feel more reverence for the Eucharist?
That was something I thought about on the pilgrimage, because there's all different in the experience, there's lots of different ways that people would act around the Eucharist while we were on the pilgrimage, and it was interesting to see. But
can you go more into detail? What would you?
Yeah, like the Hispanic community, like would sing like very loudly, for example, whereas like the English-speaking community might not sing as much, or they would sing more solemnly, perhaps.
Okay.
Like and both of those are fine. Like that's not an issue of reverence. That's if you want to sing loud and proud, that's good. If you want to sing more quiet because I don't know, that's okay. But there would also be, for example, we passed a fisherman while crossing a bridge, and he stopped what he was doing, stopped fishing, put his pole down, he knelt as we passed by with the Eucharist, right? How can we develop more reverence for the Eucharist? I think know what the Eucharist is. If you're unsure, if you have doubts, read your scripture, read your John chapter 6 and your other things.
Okay.
But beyond that, if you accept the teaching on the Eucharist, if you accept that, you could read some of the things the saints have written about the Eucharist, because that can help build up that devotion, I think. Reading St. Thomas writes a lot of good things about the Eucharist, St. Thomas Aquinas. But there are many saints who have written about the Eucharist, very good things. The famous book, Imitation of Christ, there's a whole chapter that's all about the Eucharist in there. In Protestant versions, it's not in it because they don't keep that chapter. But in the Catholic version of the book, there's the whole chapter about the Eucharist. And that I remember when I read that book had a huge impact on how I viewed the Eucharist. That was one of the first Christian books that I read.
What's the book called?
Imitation of Christ. Written
of
by
Christ.
a monk named Thomas A. Kempis.
Okay.
It's the second most famous Christian book after literally the Bible. It's the second most bought one. But that's a really important book. It's not necessarily, it's very good. I'll just say it's very good. The writings in there on the Eucharist are solid. I think after you've done that, right, so you believe the Catholic teaching.
Yeah.
You've read stuff about it. As far as developing more reverence, I think it's just about doing it and looking to the tradition of the church. How did people 300 years ago show reverence for the Eucharist? How did they do that? How did people 1,000 years ago show reverence for the Eucharist? How can I imitate them? Right? There's a famous early church saint. I believe his name is Saint Tarcissus. He was a Roman boy, and he was basically, the term is acolyte. He was like the head altar boy for his crew.
Okay.
And he was in charge of bringing the Eucharist to Christians who were imprisoned, I believe, or at least not able to be at church. And this was during a time of persecution. This was in, I believe, maybe the 300s. So he hid the Eucharist under his cloak, and he was off going to take it to the sick, the homebound, the imprisoned. And while he was on the way, he was pretty young. A bunch of his young friends, a bunch of guys, came up to him and asked him what he was doing, come with us. And then they see that he's hiding something in his cloak, and they're like, what are you hiding? What are you hiding in there? Show it to us, give it to us. And he's like, no, I can't. And he keeps telling them, and eventually, for some reason, the boys get so enraged that he won't show them what he's hiding from them, that he refuses to. And they know he's a Christian, so they think it has something to do with this. They start beating him to death, and they kill him. And he's a martyr for the Eucharist. He died because he refused to hand over the Eucharist to people who would desecrate it. So
So that's how strongly
he
felt about the Eucharist.
Yes, he was willing to die for it. He was beaten to death for it.
Wow.
And so we need to look to the lives of early saints who are willing to do things like that for the Eucharist. There are saints all throughout the church who are willing to do things like that for the Eucharist. So look to them for an example.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's a very early saint. But there are examples like that to follow. And then again, there's also just the looking to your congregation and saying when Christ passed, that is Christ the King, and I should kneel, or I should genuflect.
Genuflect meaning?
Genuflect when you go down on one knee and bless yourself. Yes.
Gotcha.
That Fulton Sheen, the famous TV bishop, he said that lack of belief in the Eucharist starts with being willy-nilly and not really genuflecting before the tabernacle. Where you losing faith in the Eucharist starts with not showing it the respect that Christ deserves in the basic mundane times you're in the church. If you go in the church to go to confession and you see the tabernacle, you genuflect in front of the tabernacle and you go. It's about building up that habit of okay, Christ is there, I need to show that with my body. Because as Christians, we are not even just as people, we are embodied, right? We are souls that are in bodies, and we're a union of the two. St. Thomas Aquinas says that a human being is a body-soul composite, a combination. And so what we believe internally needs to be supported by what we do externally. So if we believe the Eucharist in our mind, we need to support that belief, showing it with our body by doing things like folding our hands in prayer, by kneeling, doing the right kind of actions that Christians have always done. So I think, again, that three-piece combo of educate yourself scripturally, educate yourself via the writings of the saints and the lives of the saints, and then live it and do it. And like, maybe you won't do it perfectly, but I think living it will help. Gotcha. After you've done those two other things.
Okay. Now you brought up a point, you talked about martyrdom a little bit, right, with one of the saints.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to, hypothetically, right, if, let's just say someone put a gun to your head and said, do you believe in Christ? Would you be willing to, I guess, die for Christ?
Yeah, I think in that case I would, because dying by a gunshot to the head is a relatively simple death. As a Christian, there's no real reason to fear death at the end of the day. If you've lived a life devoted to Christ and you've repented of your sins, death is of no consequence to the Christian. It's of nothing to fear. But yes, I think in the case of a gun, it's less painful. In the case of a more torturous death, it would be harder. In the case of, I fear pain more than I fear death, I would say.
Can I change up the scenario a little bit? Yeah. Let's just say someone put a gun to let's just say a close family member of yours and said to you, do you believe in Christ? So now, you know what I mean? So if you say yes, no,
they'll
whatever.
They'll kill them. So that depends. If the family member, in that case, morally, the church is more willing to allow you to, save the life of your family member. By, like, you wouldn't deny Christ with your heart, but maybe you would say it just to save the person's life. Mm-hmm. But it depends on my family member's perspective. If it's my mother and my mother says, I'm willing to die for Jesus Christ, I'm like, all right, yes, I accept Christ, and they shoot her. Well, she's a martyr and she's in heaven. That would be really hard, yes, but I trust that my mother has that faith, and I would be granting her the crown of martyrdom by my decision. And then hopefully I would receive it too. It would be the same for any family member of mine.
That's a great point where you would say to the family member, are you willing to die for Christ? And if they're like, no, then you say no.
Then maybe perhaps I would. Yeah. Depends on the situation. Yeah. But if they are, certainly I would say yes. If they're not, then I don't know. Depends on the scenario. But that would be the same for all those people I know, whether it's my mother, father, girlfriend, anyone. As long as they're willing, I would gladly let them receive the crown.
Do you ever feel misunderstood?
Yeah, there are times. Conversations, like, especially when you're...
Because you're very smart. You're a very smart guy. I know there's a lot of thoughts going through that mind.
I think when you're trying to... Like, especially when I used to teach younger kids, there was a time where I taught CCD to... CCD, Catholic... Oh, how does it go? It's teaching religion to little kids. Okay. I forget what the acronym means. It's like Catholic doctrine for kids or something. I don't know. But it's teaching Catholicism to the younger ones. So I was teaching to... At one point I taught 5th grade, then I taught 3rd grade, then I think I went back to 5th grade, or maybe I taught 4th grade. I don't know. I was teaching that kind of range. And even when I was in high school, I was teaching during high school. Mm-hmm. Even when I was back then, I would sometimes, just because of who I was, I would try and take it to a higher level than a little kid could understand realistically. Just be I don't know, because I'm so I want to be an intellectual and I want to do the smart stuff, but that's not what the kids needed. The kids needed, and they still I still believe they learned some stuff, but that was where it was the first time where it's okay, maybe I need to work on how I express things more to fit the mind of the person I'm talking to. So sometimes, and not that I'm infinitely smarter than everyone else, but sometimes I just use words that people don't know. Yeah. And it's okay, I just need to tell them the definition first, and then it'll be fine. But I'll have mix-ups where Do you find that difficult to speak in, I
I guess, simpler terms or layman's terms?
No, well, yes and no. When I'm talking theology, yes, definitely. In day-to-day life, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
But when I'm trying to talk theology, yes, I will say weird words all the time that I've heard other people say. It'll be like, oh, like, did you know, like, I don't know, like the propitiating sacrifice of Christ on the cross. And it's like, what does propitiating mean? Like, people don't know that.
Yeah.
I barely know what it means. I know what it means in context, but like, you know, there's things like that that come up. Like soteriology. Like, what does soteriology mean? It's the theology of salvation. But like, people don't know that. Nobody knows that unless you study that. So it's about being smart enough, because real smart people can explain something to a person regardless of how smart or not smart they are. People who are truly intelligent can fit their message to the capacity of the hearer. The greatest philosophers and theologians can all do that. So it's about learning to not just be like, I'm smart, I know big words. Like, no, you need to fit your language properly.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think, especially with some of the saints I've talked about today, the way of life, the lives of the saints, for me, on the pilgrimage, the Dominican way of life from the sisters and from the way we lived really shine through, however you say it. And especially one of the days of the pilgrimage, I gave a little like brief 5-minute talk, and I did mine about how this is the Dominican moment in the church, how the charism, that is like the way the Dominican order, what the Dominican order is specialized for, it's time for them to do their thing. The Dominican order is structured towards preaching the gospel. And obviously we always need to preach the gospel, but the Dominican order is all about prayer, study, preaching. And so it's about taking the faith to prayer, using the fruits of that prayer to take it to study, taking the fruits of those two things combined and taking it out into the world and preaching it. And as lay people, we can do that too. As lay people, we can obviously pray, we can obviously study, and then taking that to our friendships, to our marriages, to people that we meet, we can express the faith, we can evangelize. And I think this is the moment to evangelize, very similar to when the Dominican order was founded. And so I feel that spirituality, like, kind of being a way to answer the problems that the world has, especially with the Dominican order being a more intellectual order.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they can answer some of the problems that people, some more informed people have with Christianity. The Alex O'Connors, for example, who are very smart and need smart people to answer them. Dominicans, like Father Gregory Pine and others, have answers that they can give for the very complex questions that good faith atheists may have, for example.
Is that an aspiration of yours to, I don't want to use the word debate, but we'll say have discussions with these, we'll call them the big dogs of the theology world, right?
Yeah.
Is that something you aspire to
one day? I would love to engage in discussion with people, whether on camera or not, but it would be nice on camera because then you could publish it. But I would gladly, if given the opportunity for some strange reason, talk to Alex O'Connor and ask him questions. I would gladly do that. I think I wouldn't so much do a formal debate because I think I get very heated, and so I think in a formal debate,
you think so? Yeah, you do.
I think in a formal debate I would lose because there's like a point system in a formal debate, and I think I would lose on points. I wouldn't lose as far as argument, but I might lose on the points, so to speak. But I think in a discussion with lower stakes, where it's not a competition, you're just talking things out, I'd gladly do that with anyone. Yes.
Wow. Listen, you never know. Maybe one day. Alex O'Connor, I don't know if you're watching, but I got somebody for you. But, Will, thank you very much.
Thank you.